Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Snarky here, and today we have a special guest. We have Scientist Mel.
Hi everybody. Happy Wednesday. Wednesday Adams, as I say.
Love Wednesday Adams. Hump day. Anyway.
Yes.
So definitely. So yeah, did you want to go ahead and give us like a background into what kind of science you're into and
well, I like lots of science. So
yeah.
Let's see. So my first undergrad was in biology, but not a commonly known thing is that I actually used to go to nursing school. That was immediately what I did. I immediately went into nursing school straight out of high school because I was convinced, because I had been brought up thinking that, that's the only science I could do. It was like, oh, you could be a nurse. Nurses make good money. You should be a nurse. You should be a nurse. So I heard that a lot. I actually had an English teacher when I told her, I was like, when I was really young, I went to like chemistry sets and all of this stuff. I had like a microscope that I could hook up to my TV, so where I could look at stuff. That was really awesome. And so I wanted all of these things. And so one time I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I realized I don't want to really leave the planet because that's too scary. And another time I thought it'd be brain surgery might be cool. I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to do that either. And then I thought, man, maybe I just want to be a scientist. And so as I got older, unfortunately, I had teachers that were not very supportive. I had an English teacher told me that I was too stupid to be a nurse.
Oh.
And that I was like 12. And so that's like kind of formative when you're trying to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up? That's kind of the age where you go into high school and you're trying to figure out, what path do I want to go? And at the time they had a vocational path, and they had like a college education, college prep path. So I went ahead and went the college prep path because my mom insisted, you've got to do the college prep path. She goes, but you should totally be a nurse. And so I actually made an F in biology once on my report card. It was like 1 point from a D. I know. I was just like, I actually made an F I actually have a degree in biology, but I made an F in high school on my report card in biology. And that was because at the time teachers could give you zeros if they thought you were cheating, and I wasn't cheating. I dropped my pencil, and I was asking somebody to hand me my pencil, and they're like, you're talking during a test, you get a 0. And so I got zeros for that report card. I'm like, I did not properly earn this F. Yeah, but that's how it goes. Sometimes your grades don't really match up your ability. So I graduated high school thinking I could only ever be a nurse, and there's nothing wrong with nurses. I went to nursing school. I could be a nurse in probably less than a year. I got into clinicals. I got all the way into clinicals. I had taken all this coursework, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So like, no, it was just not a positive or growing experience for me. And I have a true respect for nurses. Some of the closest friends I have are nurses. Like and they love it. You either love it or you hate it. And I was in the hate camp. Like, this is not my thing. Yeah. But I have a respect for nurses. I'm much more research and communication and academia oriented. But that was the path that I took because that was what I thought I could only do. And so a period of time went by. I went back to university and completed my biology degree. And I'm like, you mean I can do this? Wow. And I'm like, okay. And so then I started teaching high school, picked up a master's in Masters of Arts, specialized in secondary science education. And then I was like, well, how many classes do I need to get a second undergrad in science? And I called the chemistry department. They said 3. I said, well, I guess I'll do that now. And so then I picked up an undergrad in biochem. And then I was offered a graduate assistantship for a master's in chemistry. So I'm like, that sounds cool. So I went ahead and did that. And I got a fellowship in the process. So I'm just like, it's like, So I can science, it seems.
Yes, you can
And now
science.
I have a
very
public.
well.
I'm a co-author in a publication for a project that I worked on while I was in graduate school for a breast cancer test, and that's coming out this year. So,
Wow! Thank you.
Thank you. It's really exciting. So, like,
Yes.
I have scienced all kinds of things. So, I think I've had a very eclectic background. So, but I tend to be more life science oriented, but the chemistry and the biology, they overlap in a lot of what I've done. So I wasn't really chemistry oriented early on. And I'm like, this is just not my thing. And then I ended up getting a master's in it. And I thought, well, hey, why not?
It's amazing how time can change things, right?
It is. And it's so freeing to just sit there and go, you mean I can do this? It was a lot of work. Now, I'm not downplaying it. It was a lot of work. And I went back to school as an adult and finished my first degree it was 2011. So I've managed to pick up 4 degrees in 7 years. Wow. So it's like, and I had taken so much biology. Here's the funny thing about academia, because I had taken all this nursing stuff. I had anatomy and physiology, a year of that, and I had patho and all this other science stuff. And then they're like, well, that doesn't really count towards your biology degree, but it counts towards your biology hours. I had maxed out on the amount of biology I could take for my first undergrad degree. They're like, you can't take any more, and you need upper division science. Go to chemistry and get a minor.
Oh, wow.
Like, okay, I guess I'm going to get a minor in biochem. And then I picked up the other 3 classes later and got the second full degree. So it's weird.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of weird how the classes, they don't seem to coincide with the degree that you're going for later. It's a lot of the credits don't transfer. Yeah.
It's annoying. And the thing is, I also have credits in theater and films.
Yeah.
Music, theater, and film. So I actually, for a while, I was a dual major in biology and theater.
Wow. That's not a combination you hear very often.
No, and that's what the people in the theater said. I'm like, why not? We need people that can express biology in musical format. I don't understand. We now have that on YouTube. You can find, there's like a guy who does songs that are sciencey, but they're like, I think Despacito. He's taken that song and made it like a chemistry song.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's a thing that exists now. I'm like, see, that could have been me.
It could have. It was your idea. That's just wrong. But
9 million years ago, but that's okay.
I imagine that having this kind of information in music form would make it a lot easier to remember too, if you're studying it.
Oh gosh, yes. I used to make songs all the time. Songs make everything easier.
They do. I can remember lyrics from the 80s, but I can't remember any of this chemistry stuff. I look at the words and my brain goes, huh?
see, you should take like Aha's Take on Me, except adapt it to the citric acid cycle. And just sing all the enzymes. You get malate acid, da, 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 da. You just go on through all the stuff. That'd be great. NADH.
That would be.
Da, 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 da. You have science jazz hands from time to time.
Yes, you gotta have the jazz hands. But yeah, it seems like you put a whole lot of work into your learning, and you are a great communicator.
Well, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you taking the time to communicate these ideas, because there's a lot of ignorance there, and you're looking at some of it. Like I said, I was homeschooled, so I really didn't learn very much science, at least not biological stuff. Specifically, evolution was
that was probably yeah. I've known. I actually used to tutor at a homeschool once upon a time ago, so I'm all too familiar. Yeah,
yeah. Did they have Bible classes.
They did. They did. And so it's weird because I transitioned. I went from, because when I started there, I grew up Nazarene, and I don't know if you're familiar with Nazarene. Look them up sometime. They're pretty, they're like in between Baptist and Pentecostal, Assembly of God. They're not quite the pew bench warmers that Baptists are, but they're not really running through the aisles either, like Pentecostal and Assembly of God are. But they do believe you can speak in tongues. It's not required, but you can. And so I grew up Nazarene, and later I was hanging out with the Baptists. And then later I became Catholic. I'm not really religious now, but it's weird because when I started tutoring at this homeschool, it was run by a Baptist church. And I taught their math and science. And we got to the church aspect of things. So I started to where I could like talk about various scriptures and deliver like the message or something. And then once I became Catholic, they were like, yeah, no, you can't. Sorry, you're Catholic now. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah, they're big fans of the Catholics, right?
And so towards the end of the time that I was at that school, when I was steadily, converting to Catholicism at the time, they were like, yeah, no, and so they would have little digs about Catholics from time to time in their messages. And I'm like, dude, come on. It wasn't like all the time, but it was like here and there, like she's turning Catholic,
Everybody beware. That would be you, right? The Catholic. That's Catholic.
Yes, we had the freaking holy water and stuff. It's just like the power of Christ compels you. Burns on a Baptist,
It burns. I'm an atheist. It burns. Anyway.
So it's but I really did enjoy. I learned how to teach while at that school, and what I mean by that is, because I was more of a tutor setup, students could come to me and they would ask me questions about the content they were learning, and I learned how they learned. And so I got to personally, I say personally, but it's kind of a strong relationship you have with an individual when you are learning how they learn. And so that's kind of how I early on, before I even finished, this was years before I finished my first degree. I was like, I learned how other people learn and how to talk to them. I'm like, okay, you like this particular type of music, we're going to apply that to algebra, because that was math and science. And so I did 7th through 12th grade. So I got the higher end of the math and the science. And so, and my students did fine. I had a student who managed to get their master's by the time they were 21. They graduated from, and I was their math and science teacher. They graduated really early, accelerated through the homeschool program, graduated early, got their bachelor's degree by the time they were 19, couldn't get a job because they weren't legally allowed to drink. So they couldn't go out with anybody. Just went back to school and picked up their master's and graduated by the time they were 21. They had already picked up their master's degree. So, that was somebody I got to teach.
Wow. That must be a good feeling too, to see your students progress that way and do so well. That's amazing.
It is. And that's kind of what being a teacher is about. You want people to do well and you want them to succeed. And so I always find it disheartening when I come across teachers or people that just don't want others to succeed. I'm like, why are you trying? And I get some people get jaded. They get down about humanity. And the news, come on. But it's like, kids are still moldable. They're still moldable. And I can forgive a kid a lot more than I can a 70-year-old man that acts like a jerk.
Yes.
So I'm like, you're grown. You have to know what it's like to talk to people like that and how that feels. How can you be that way? But to like a 15-year-old kid that doesn't know how to process anything and is dealing with it, you know, I can forgive that because they don't have life experience. But a 60, 70-year-old person that's acting like a jerk, I'm like, you know, come on, man. I get life has dealt you a hard time, you know, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of weird, so I'm a former New Ager.
Okay, cool.
I was in all kind of woo stuff, chakras, the whole 9 yards. Ridiculous, right? And
yes, that's okay.
Will you forgive me?
I will forgive you just this once.
Yay! But yeah, so there was a lot of misconceptions on scientific things, mainly when it comes to health and wellness. And I wanted to ask you a few things about these topics.
Sure.
One of the first thing I wanted to ask you is kind of a fun question.
Okay.
There are a lot of folks in the New Age community that hold the belief that crystals can provide healing. Okay. Is there any merit to these claims?
Not at all. Crystals can contribute to healing like my back door can do to teleportation. I actually have a TARDIS. I have like a candy jar TARDIS. You know, that would be like me trying to actually time travel in my candy jar TARDIS. I might have a better shot at that.
And I love that TARDIS, by the way.
This is a lunchbox. This one is a lunchbox, but I do have an actual candy jar TARDIS, and it has the button on the top, and it makes the sound when you open it up.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
We also have the Lavender Lady brought up Palladians. Have you heard of the Palladians?
I have not. Tell me about those. That sounds interesting.
There are some people that believe that alien species from different star systems, like the Pleiades, came here and sprinkled genetics, I guess, everywhere and created life, basically. And that a lot of these people are still carrying these genes, and so they consider themselves star seeds. So basically, there are a lot of New Agers walking around thinking that they're from another planet.
Well, there is some research that's trying to figure out, and one of the things that they're trying to, I don't know, it's just a hypothesis or an idea, is the fact that certain bacteria and certain type of organisms can live in the vacuum of space. And we know that Mars could have been very much like Earth. We know Venus has a runaway greenhouse effect. There are some thoughts that maybe during the time when Earth was trying to get some life going, that possibly a microorganism came from Mars on a meteor, you know, and came over to our planet. Now, I understand that's a long shot, but that is a legit science thing. But I don't know about sentient organisms that are humanoid that had come to this planet sowing genetic code. I don't know of any evidence of that. They're just not.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, there are people that believe that. It's a hoot.
I bet, you know, it's pretty freaking interesting when that stuff happens. You're like, wow.
They got all these pictures, like there's people that think they're from the Sirius star system, and they've got these pictures of these beings that look like cats, you know.
Yes.
So, and it kind of follows the mythology, the Egyptian mythology of Sekhmet and Bast and all that. But I think that that's more what they're catering to than anything else. I also wanted to ask you, there's also a big fear of fluoride, and they say that the reason why we have fluoride in the water is because of course, it's intentional because lizard people or whatever But they say that it calcifies the pineal gland and keeps us kind of subservient. That's the theory.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Let me look that up. So now I know fluoride is in the water because that's a tooth thing for dental stuff. Fluoride calcifies the. Okay, so that's what Snopes has an article on this.
Of course.
Okay, water fluoridation reduces IQ? Question mark with Snopes. Let me see what they have to say. I love Snopes. It's so great. It's false. According to Snopes, which we know is a reputable source, it's false. Fluoride in whatever amount is nothing less than a chemical weapon, considering it is applied to entire populations or certain groups within a population. The definition is chemical warfare, a tool most useful to eugenicists who are intent on depopulation. That's dumb. You have fluoride when you go to the dentist and they're like, here, swirl this around. It's just, and I don't know how fluoride would calcify your pineal gland.
That's what they say. And it's supposed to keep us docile and dumbed down and all this other stuff. The main question I wanted to ask you was, is consuming this fluoride safe?
Well, yes, it is. I mean, if you try to like order industrial grade fluoride and go chugging that, I would not recommend that. That's probably not the best idea. But, it's just regular, it's anything in moderation is okay. There's certain levels of cyanide you can take that'll be fine. There's certain levels of anything that'll be fine. It just depends on what your metabolism is, and it depends on what your body's how your body breaks that down. But see, that's the thing. Everybody's different. So that's why we just don't be doing drugs, kids, all the time without some kind of understanding from science how it affects our bodies.
Yeah. That's the thing, is I think people, they look up these things that are toxins, right? And which is another topic I'm going to bring up, like vaccines. And they say, well, it's got mercury in it. But they don't realize that just it's not very much. It's not enough to make it.
If people had sodium by itself, their bodies would explode. So it's like, sodium interacts with water. Okay, you throw sodium at some water, it freaking blows up. But sodium with chloride in water is okay. So they make these assumptions. Well, mercury is bad. Yes, if it's by itself, it's very, very toxic for you, and it's not good. That's why we don't have mercury thermometers, because mercury, if it breaks, it gets and it becomes toxic to you. So we have these electric thermometers and things like that. But mercury by itself, you get more mercury in your tuna fish that you eat. Or they used to have fillings in your teeth that has mercury. You have more access to mercury in the fillings in your teeth or the fish that you eat than you would in a vaccine. It's just,
very well said.
I mean, and there's other things in it. It's meant to be a preservative, but it's such a small amount. And there's other things in it that don't cause it to be toxic. So it's just, I encounter anti-vaxxers, not so much now. They pretty much leave me alone. But it's like on social media when I first started out with my project, I call anti-vaxxers sand people, like Star Wars, because they behave just like sand people. They scare away easily and come back in greater numbers, and everything they say sounds like, and I'm just like, it's just more of the same. I'm like, these are all sand people. And you came back with Helen, your friend, that you go to yoga and you buy these non-GMO organic crap that doesn't really matter. But if you yoga it out, then somehow your genes change a little bit and you drank water today. So it's
it's just, yeah, the yoga folks or something else.
Well, I mean, I like yoga. I like that. But when people are like, well, I do yoga and I do non-GMO and I do gluten-free and then I don't vaccinate my children. I'm like, hold on.
Oh.
Yoga, gluten-free, I don't care, non-GMO, whatever. That's you. But when you don't vaccinate people, you're not only hurting your kids, but you're hurting everybody else who's immunosuppressed. And that I have a problem with that. So
yeah, people that are already sick or
right.
have immunity problems, they can't have the vaccines, then you're just putting them at risk. Do you think?
Yeah, and cancer patients, I mean, who are on chemotherapy, who are immunosuppressed, they, do they really need the measles on top of everything else they got to go through?
And we don't want polio coming back.
Oh God, it's not fully eradicated, but it's, there are people who are walking this planet still, who are permanently injured from polio.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, I don't see polio so much. Why?
Yeah, I saw a video the other day of this guy that still has the iron lung, and I can't imagine. And he's been having to use this iron lung for decades. He lives his life. He works. He does everything that everybody else does with this iron lung. It's something else. I mean, of course, he has to have care and everything, but he didn't let it hold him back, which is, I thought it was kind of inspirational.
Right. I've been trying to catch up on the side chat from time to time because I try to talk to people there. Let me see if anybody has any questions. Candy jar TARDIS, yes. I need to replace the battery or I'd pull it out and show it to you. So, and I don't want to embarrass myself with the performance issues. That sounded a little bit cheeky.
The gay frog community is fabulous.
The gay frog community. Are there gay frogs? I don't know about gay frogs.
According to Alex Jones, the freaking frogs are gay.
It's fun. When I used to teach biology in high school, I would show the Planet Earth videos. And one of the things was there are tree frogs. There's certain type of tree frog that the females would listen for the croaks of the frogs that they found sexy, and they were like, I'm going to go for that. And usually it's like the bigger frogs and they just have this beautiful song. And the girl frog is like, that's my jam. And so they try to go for that. And then all the other little skinny frogs that are male, they're like, she's not listening to my song. They actually gang rape her. It's horrible. And so it's like they all try to jump on her and try to like impregnate her before she gets to the frog that she wants. And I'm just like, and the kids are watching this.
I did not see this coming in the story. You totally caught me off guard with the gang rape.
Tree frogs participate in gang rape.
Wow.
So, gang banging. So they gang bang. And so, the girl, she like tried to get them off. It's like, God, you guys are annoying. And then she finally, she can get to the frog that she wants. It's just, but we see a lot of this in nature. I don't know where it's like the gay frogs. I'm like, it makes sense that, the smaller frogs were gay because they have a hard time getting the ladies. And maybe that's a thing.
Poor frog.
Maybe that's the thing. Right. No, it's, it's a problematic situation for the Frog Society.
We should really have some kind of regulation in the Frog Society.
The poor frogs. Oh my goodness.
So if you guys have any questions, let us know. Put it in the little chat, tag me or something, or tag Scientist Mel.
Okay, so they mentioned Paulo Gia's video that came out today.
Yes.
I have my like white lab coat and blue scrubs. So something that I post on Twitter sometimes is me in my white lab coat and blue scrubs. This was like, she had on the blue TARDIS shirt. Well, I have to wear scrubs where I work. That's why. And then the science coat, like the white lab coat. That's funny.
Cartoon Mel is awesome.
Somebody said I look like the Joker, Jack Nicholson, the Joker. I thought, well, you know, it's just... It's supposed to be fun. Why do you gotta worry about how, you know, I thought Paul did a great job with editing. That was really cool. Paul's a really cool guy.
He is. He's an amazing creator too.
He is. He does really good work. So Don's like, talk about gay frogs. Okay, we did for a little bit.
Yeah, we did. We did the gay frog thing. I wanted to ask you too, have you ever heard of Reiki healing?
I've heard of it, but I don't know a lot about it.
It's basically people use their magic touch, or they focus energy, whatever it is, to heal people. And sometimes it's like from a distance, and sometimes it's just they, you know, move their hands over somebody. But yeah, that's another interesting woo thing that
well, I have to say, if it's Tom Hiddleston running his hands on me, that might be magical.
Get some of that healing.
Yeah. We'll just call it that. It's that Marvin Gaye song.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Yes. That'd be perfect. Just have that playing on in the background, a little Reiki.
Yeah. Okay, as an aside, you have to look up him talking about pi. Like 3.14. He goes, and he goes, so that on Pi Day, he was talking about pi. And I'm like, that's all I need. Tom Hiddleston is talking about pi. I will need a moment now. So if Tom Hiddleston is performing Reiki, that might be all right and magical in ways that we can explain. The other types of Reiki, maybe not so much. Maybe not so much.
But when it comes to these kind of things, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff. You know, it worked for me, right? And so they have that they usually go to.
So placebo effect.
Yes, that's what I was. Yep. What do you know about the placebo effect? How does that work?
Oh gosh, the brain is fantastic. If we truly believe something's going to make us better, we believe it enough. Sometimes it can alter our biochemistry, but it's only for just a temporary period of time. It's not permanent. So for instance, homeopathy, some people will take, are you familiar with homeopathy?
Yes.
Okay. So some people take that homeopathy, like, well, I feel better when I take this, when I have allergies going on. Well, at some point in time, your allergies are going to go away. The pollen drops, you're taking that. I mean, there's reasons why you feel better. But homeopathy, when we're looking at that, there's nothing that can be detected in the solutions that they're giving you. There's just not enough there for it to actually make any kind of substantial contribution one way or another. But our brains trick us into thinking that we're getting better. We have lessening of symptoms. The placebo effect is a very serious thing, especially if you're in a drug company and you're trying to get a drug to market. You have to show that it does something substantial over a placebo, because that is pretty freaking profound. So if you have somebody that thinks that they're taking the drug and they have similar benefit to somebody who's taking the drug, and then you don't have anything to sell. But it's a very real thing that happens, but it's temporary. So long-term studies are the best ways to overcome the placebo effect, because it's always temporary. The symptoms always come back. So
Right.
yeah.
And that's why whenever somebody goes, oh my God, I've been, magically healed. Still okay.
Yeah, and then they die of cancer the following week because they thought, oh, I feel so much better. This apricot, whatever, cured me for like 5 minutes. And now, I don't have to take my cancer meds. I don't need surgery. I'm all better now. And then they die.
Yeah. And it's tragic, especially since, on social media that is really giving a platform to this pseudoscientific nonsense. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm like, this whole time, I was perfectly fine before I got on the stream.
It's my fault. It's totally my fault.
No. I also wanted to ask you, it was asked in the chat by Godless Iowan. He wanted me to ask you about chakras. Do you think there's any merit to the idea that chakras exist and they have an impact on our biology?
I don't know about that. I do know when regards to thought. All right, we look at individuals who suffer depression. It is a holistic disease. It doesn't just affect their brain. They feel cold in parts of their body. They feel actual physical pain. Sometimes they can't get out of bed. So sometimes if our brain chemistry is off, it can affect us overall. When we feel love, we can feel it throughout our whole body. So things in coordination with our brain, whether it's feelings or thoughts or sadness or depression or something that's firing off in our mind, pleasure, we can feel it all over. And so it feels like, that's happening, and we can pick it up on infrared type of camera. So we can see the different temperatures and the changes in the bodies associated with these different things that fire off. We can see it in CAT scans. So it's not so much of a stretch that people are like, oh, I can sense that you're this. I mean, because temperature changes, we do emit electromagnetic fields. Perhaps it's stronger with certain individuals. We're susceptible to pheromones. Some people can give off more of a personal scent that can affect another person. So there's a lot of dynamics there that could come into play in regards of chakras and stuff like that. But actually seeing, auras or, talking about the different parts of your body and trying to channel that energy, maybe what they're trying to do is kind of trigger a feeling all over your body associated with a particular thing. That's the only thing I can think of, because we can feel love all over. We can feel sadness all over. We can feel different things and have physical pain. Heartache is a real thing. You can feel physical pain from being sad. So perhaps that's a thing to try to shift perceptions, to fire off different neurotransmitters to make us feel better holistically. That's the only thing I think of on chakras.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense, especially since a lot of the new age stuff and everything is the esoteric practice is more of a psychological thing than an actual physical thing, but you can feel it physically. So that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
That's what my take on chakras. So I have no evidence outside of just trying to piece together why they think that way. So
and at one point, like there's supposed to be like 7 main chakras, but it gets crazy. It turns into like hundreds of chakras. So it's yeah. I think maybe the idea of, like the meridians that they have in Chinese medicine and acupuncture and stuff like that. Maybe that's what they're talking about. Dinosaurs were not vaccinated.
Well, you know what? You can't vaccinate against an asteroid. I would like a vaccination against an asteroid, please.
Yeah, me too. That would be awesome.
That would be really nice. A vaccination against car accidents would be helpful too, especially dummies. I want a vaccination against dummies. Anytime a dummy comes, they're just instantly repelled. Sorry. Or at least the willfully ignorant. The willfully ignorant who refuse to learn and grow, I need a vaccine for them. And they just bounce right off. I'm sorry. I've been vaccinated.
That would be great. Oh.
Your kind don't stick to me. Just fall right off. See, you tried to come back harder and you just bounced and hit the ground.
I have a glowing red spinning wheel in my what? Yes. I liked that episode of Mortimer 81, or that video that Mortimer 81 did.
I have to check that out.
The chakras.
Yeah, somebody's asking me about the placebo effect created by homeopathy causes people to feel better, even though their sickness actually gets worse. Well, placebo effect. Okay, so I'm trying to understand your question. It wasn't created by homeopathy. It is a thing that exists, but if people who are taking it who think that they're better from it, yeah, I mean it's temporary. It's not being treated and you're already having issues associated with your illness. If it's like a cold or a virus, you probably will eventually get better because your immune system, kicks in. But if it's like cancer or something like that, it's spread and you're like stage 2, stage 3 cancer, or even stage 1. Homeopathy, the placebo effect is not going to help that, and you will get worse. I've lost. There's the chat again. Mel needs the Idiot's Guide to Books for Dummies. Oh no, I don't. I used to teach high school. And I'm not even talking about the kids. It's like we can hit the parents with that. Right. Some of them, not all the parents, but some of the parents, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I imagine.
That was a learning experience on humans.
I bet it was, and how they react to things like bad news and failure or challenges.
Oh. I had somebody who was upset that their kid didn't have like a really high A, and I went, because they didn't do really high A work. Yeah. Well, they're like, they could do extra credit. I'm like, I don't have time to grade extra credit. Well, you can just give it to my kid. And I'm like, if I give extra credit, I have to give it to everybody's kids.
Yeah.
And I don't have time to grade that before the grades are due. Well, what can they do to get an A? They can do better next time. So, I mean, at the time I had like a separate website. I had an audio podcast where I did like summaries in the notes, the key points. They had access to all of my slides. I printed out slides. They could copy them down in class. And if they missed class, I had them printed out in a notebook. I mean, it's just everything was there. And so there was, I'm like, and I actually was paid to stay after school to tutor the chemistry kids, even though I taught biology. So I stayed after school and tutored the chemistry kids who used to be my biology students. They're like, I miss you as a teacher. I said, I told you that would happen. I told you that would happen. They don't teach like I do.
I imagine you were an awesome teacher.
I tried. The first year was the learning year. Yeah, especially when you got to teach evolution in the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Sitting there, I already knew what I was dealing with. I had the first year I had a kid stand up and have like a public protest in my class about not hearing evolution. And then it was just a battle. And I'm like, this is not the way to do things. And then the next year, I'm like, I'm not going to have that again. There were kids who were atheists in my class during that year, and they were upset. Somebody had put some anti-atheist propaganda and put it on my chalkboard. And somebody in my class was an atheist, and I got caught, and I didn't notice it until the end of the class. Somebody put it like discreetly on the corner. And I'm like, and then I looked at it, and then I had to go to the administrator's office and talk about, I'm like, I didn't put that there. That was somebody else. These are the kids that are in my class that are vocal about not wanting to listen. You can ask them. That was a problem. That was a big problem. And so what I learned from that first year was that I just have to address the elephant in the room and not sit here and pretend that this doesn't exist. And so the second year, at the beginning of the year, I'm like, we're going to talk about things that are controversial. You're going to be voting in a few years. You need to know how the world works. I'm going to stand here. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I will never tell you what to think. That's not my job. You've been told what to think your whole lives. I'm going to teach you how to think. And you come up with your own conclusions. You have a fantastic brain. I want you to make up your own mind. I'm not going to do that for you.
Yeah.
That's not my job. And so from the very beginning, I empowered these kids to be like, no, you're going to think for yourselves. You make your own choices. That's not my job. I just want to make sure you understand what words mean. And so I removed any fear of them thinking I was going to try to convert them to evolution. Like, they think you're going to convert me to, no, I don't care. You come up. I want you to think, just think. And so when I got to that and I went that route, it was by far way more productive. They would engage like, well, I don't believe that. I'm like, you don't have to, it's okay. But I want to make certain you understand what the evidence is. We have the fossil record, we have biochemistry, we have embryology, we have, this and we have this. And I'd go down the list and they're like, okay. But then I wrote an article about this on my website. There was one really, really, really smart girl. So smart. I could see it in her. She was extremely religious and was really upset about evolution. I had shown bits of cosmos. She liked biology 1 so much she took my biology 2 class. And but when we would talk about evolution, you could see that internal struggle in her, and you could see she was like a straight A student. And when you're smart, you're like, how can I refute this evidence? And so she's sitting there, and I could just see a little bit of that heartbreak, and that pain that you feel, because at some point you have to understand somebody's lied to you.
Yeah.
Who's lied to you at this point? All of this evidence that says this is the answer, or people that you care about that are at your church. So, and she was really, and she goes, well, she would fight with me sometimes. The Ken Ham Bill Nye debate was out at the time. And she was like, you should come to my church. We're going to watch this. I'm like, oh, do you need somebody to explain evolution to you? No. We don't need that. I'm like, well, I can just watch this at home then. I'd be happy to go and answer questions about evolution. If you're like, well, we don't need any speakers. Okay. And so that was a big topic in my classroom. And so I stood there, and the kids were like, did you watch the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate? I'm like, yes, I did. And they said, what did you think of? I said, well, I leave it to the last question. They asked Bill Nye if anything would ever change his mind. He said, nothing. Well, I mean, not Bill Nye, but Ken Ham. Would anything ever change your mind? And Ken Ham says, nothing will ever change my mind. And Bill Nye said, yes, evidence. I said, it's me. If there's evidence, you can always change my mind. And the same girl who's really smart said, well, nothing will change my mind. I looked at her and said, I'm really glad our courts don't think like you. Because if I have to flip like the death penalty switch on somebody, I want to make certain I have substantial evidence before I do that.
That's a very good point. Yes.
And so she was quiet. And after that, she listened. And then she took my Bio 2 class. She was so smart. And I'm like, I can save you.
Yeah.
Like, come to me. I can help you. But I felt like I could reach her. And I'm like, she made 99s on my tests, hundreds on my tests. And they were hard. Even biology too, where we talked a lot about organic chemistry. She was nailing it. And I'm like, can I save you? You are so smart. It's just like, sometimes I feel like a bit of guilt for leaving the teaching profession, because I felt like I was just right up in it, in the thick of it, in the Bible Belt, helping people. So part of me feels guilty about that. So,
well, you're still helping people.
I try.
All the work that you have put into, no, you do. You've got all this information. It's just right there. And from a scientist, I mean, there's very few scientists out there that are actually reaching out on social media and giving people the information and the evidence. So you're still reaching people.
I hope so. It's cool to, it's a different experience online as it is like in person, because it's weird, but it's strange to me. So sometimes I miss the kids, and I still have an active teaching license. I can legally teach 3 subjects. If I wanted to, I could just jump right back into it and be like, hey, So it's not hard, but this is cool too. I enjoy this, and I like being in industry and working with all the stuff in the lab. So that's fun.
That would be amazing. If I were as smart as you, that's what I would want to do, is just be in a lab. I would not be a teacher. No. I wouldn't be able to handle it.
It's a lot, and and that's the thing, it's never the kids, it's the politics, it's the politicians that get involved and tell you how you have to teach. And I'm like, none of these have ever set foot in a classroom. So teachers have my respect, just like nurses. I could not be one. I'm like, no, thank you. I get you though. It's like, I get you.
It's kind of crazy because my mom was a nurse. She was a LVN down in Texas, and then later on she went back to school and she became a teacher. So it's kind of funny.
It is, and there are some parallels to nurses and teachers and things. You have to really enjoy it, because so much of it is thankless. Oh goodness, Grandma Mo says.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just like, she says, you teach me new things every time I watch you in a video. I'm glad you learned, Grandma Mo.
Yes, and I second that sentiment, because I always learn something every time I see you. So.
Well, that makes me happy. I'm so glad that you guys do. That's wonderful. That just brightens my day.
Oh, yay, no orgasm buttons. You're so naughty.
We don't have icky boys on here today.
Little Snarky is in her bedroom on her phone, probably, because she's 12 and that's all that she cares about is her friends, and she's too cool for her mom now. So
good. Absolutely. Let's see. Mel, you just got to learn a perfect celestial flying elbow. That'll take care of those asteroids. Yes. Just, I used to mosh pit back in the day. Yes. Let's see. The last pit that I was in was at a Linkin Park concert in Las Vegas.
Oh, Linkin
I did, man. You don't throw bows in the pit, though, man. You don't throw bows in the pit. That ain't okay. And if somebody falls down, you stop and you pick them up, man. That's the way we roll. So, they would stop shows. I've seen Linkin Park. I'd seen them twice. Once in Memphis and once in Las Vegas. And when I was in Las Vegas, it was just like they always would say, you don't throw bows in the pit, and you always pick up people who fall down, because there's nobody going to get hurt. But they knew how to tour. But that was a lot of fun, man. I just go in, you just all in the mosh pit.
I didn't realize there was mosh pit etiquette.
There's totally mosh pit etiquette. Godless Iwan says, boys are icky. Scientist Mel, except Tom Hiddleston. And Tom Hiddleston's not icky. He drinks tea. Probably Earl Grey, right?
Hey, Earl Grey is awesome. RSC asked, why doesn't God heal amputees or people who have lost all their adult teeth?
I don't know.
You'd have to ask God.
Yes.
Because I don't know his mysterious ways. So
let's see. It comes back around, Snarky. Nice, Mel. I'm impressed. Pits aren't like that now. It's hardcore dancing now. You guys don't be throwing bows in the mosh pit. That's not how we roll, man. You don't do that. You hurt people.
yeah.
Oh, they don't have any balance though. See, do I have to give mosh pit lessons? It's like the science of mosh pits. This is how to properly mosh. These are the physics. One of the funniest things, which journal is it? There, around Christmas time, there's a particular journal that always has like a really silly article that they publish. And this one was about head banging. Head bangers caught between a rock and a hard base.
Oh my.
They did the physics of head banging. Let me see. B and J. That's what it is. So if we're going to talk about head bangers, they actually worked out the physics between head banging and how to actually reduce your risk of head and neck injuries associated with that. Is it okay if I share a screen so you guys can see it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I'll share. Okay, so this is BMJ. So here we go. Head and neck injury risks in heavy metal. Headbangers stuck between rock and a hard base. This came out in 2008. When I was in graduate school for chemistry, we had to take this class about graduate school and how to do a talk. I really wanted them to let me use this, and they wouldn't. I was so upset. And they have like a method section. They even have an equation. So for my math people, if you want to look at the equation, here it is in regards to head banging. So there's some math for you. So T1 and T2 are the initial and final times of the interval during which the head injury criteria attains a maximum value, and at T is the resultant acceleration measured at the center of gravity of the head. So yeah, so that's the center of gravity at the head. All right, and so this is the intervals between maximum head banging tunes there for the time.
When was this? When I was a teenager, and I was like, head
banging. But this is like so awesome. They talked about possible interventions. This is probably my favorite thing. Possible interventions to reduce the risk of injury caused by head banging include limiting the range of neck motion through a formal training program delivered before a concert. How to properly headbang. Substitution of adult. And then they say, instead of listening to the hard rock stuff, you could easily listening music such as The Controls or others, including Michael Bolton. So Michael Bolton's and Celine Dion, Enya, and Richard Clayderman. So listen to that instead of heavy metal, and you won't have headbanger injuries.
No, honey, no. You can't headbang to, no. My heart will go on. Okay. I have another question, and I think I have time for this last question. So Grandma Mo says, Scientist Mel, have you heard about any new treatment for conditions that cause nerve pain? I'm not sure what. I had CRPS since 1991. Oh.
CRPS. I'm trying. Let's see. What is that acronym for? CRPS. Let me look that up really quick.
Complex regional pain syndrome.
Oh, okay. Complex regional pain syndrome. I don't know of any new treatments, but what I can do, Grandma Mo, if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I can see if there's any, if we can figure out where you are, if there's any kind of studies for that they're doing, because sometimes clinical trials are actually quite helpful, especially if you've experienced this for a long time. I do know the FDA and sometimes the CDC have resources available on their website associated with a particular type of disease, to where you can see if there's any particular clinical trials in your area to kind of help you with that. Or if it's close enough for you to travel, you might could try that too. But yeah, hit me up on that and let me, if you're comfortable telling me where you live, and then we can kind of figure out if there's something near you that you can have a go with. And also another thing you can do is talk to your doctor about potential clinical trials. If there's anything in your area, they would probably know, especially if they're a specialist.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Scientist Mel. I'm sorry, Grandma Mo. That sounds really rough.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Chronic
pain is just one of those illnesses. People who don't suffer it tend to not understand it's constant. You know, there are up days and there are down days, but it's always there. So,
yeah,
you know,
indeed,
it's an invisible illness for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because it's been an hour. It's been a fun hour, though.
Okay.
Went by really fun. It would be nice to have you back again sometime if you don't want.
I love that. That would be fun.
I'm socially awkward, but you know.
Hey, you know, it's part of your charm. It's all right.
Yeah, I suppose I could look at it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes it who you are. Your own quirky kind of style. It's all right.
Yes, I'm the quirky redhead, right?
There you go.
But yeah. It's R and Raw time, and I know everybody wants to get over to Non Sequitur and watch that. But thank you guys for joining us, and definitely check out Scientist Mel's channel. Subscribe. It's awesome. Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, not really. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you here. Thank you for having me. This has been cool.
Likewise, and I really appreciate this. I'm an itty bitty channel, so I need all the help I can get.
That's okay. You're doing a good job. Keep it up.
Thank you. And thank you guys for joining us in the chat. And I guess I'll see you over at Non Sequitur. And y'all have a good night.
Bye, Scientist Mel.
Bye. Bye.